Hey everybody, today is April 23rd, so we'll be looking at April 22nd's MTG stocks. Um, we will kind of notice here that Garuda has gone up, and we're not going to go over too many of the Ikoria stuff because it's going to fluctuate a lot right now. But it's kind of interesting that it was 93 cents, and now it's like $11. And we're not going to talk about Garuda much because we've talked about him before, but that is just an interesting note. But the card that we will actually talk about today is the Uba Mask. So, Uba Mask, it went from 87 cents to 562, which is a pretty big price increase for an old card like this. But let's go ahead and read what it does here. So, Uba Mask is 4 colorless artifact. If a player would draw a card, that player removes that card from the game face up instead. Each player may play cards he or she removed from the game with Uba Mask this turn. So it's kind of interesting because it is a effect that is a replacement effect, and so if someone would draw a card, if they get any kind of trigger from that card, then it doesn't actually do that because it's being removed instead. But the good thing about Uba Mask is that you can still use that card. So for instance, if we had let's say we had a card like Psychosis Crawler, I believe. Yeah. Um, that's when you draw a card, you deal 1 damage to each opponent. But if you had Uba Mask in play, they didn't technically draw that card. They had to basically exile it. And so that kind of gets rid of things like that. So people can't use wheel effects and et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of an interesting thing for it to do. But I think one of the other reasons it spiked up recently is because of a new Ikoria card. And also, I'm going to play out the disclaimer that it is an old card, and since it's an old card and has only been reprinted in Kamigawa, I believe that it is hard to get. And so, since it's hard to get, that's why it's gone up, even though it may or may not really do much. So people probably bought it out for speculation reasons. But the card from Ikoria is called Dranith Magistrate. This is a 1 colorless white creature, human wizard. It has 1 power and 3 toughness, and your opponent can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. So with Uba Mask, you basically, when people draw new cards, Dranith Magistrate shuts them down, and that's a pretty huge effect. So if you were able to discard their hand through some manner, and then you use Dranith Magistrate and Uba Mask, then at that point in time, they pretty much can't do anything to you unless they have something on the board that can either interact with Uba Mask or Dranith Magistrate. So it's kind of like an interesting way to lock people out, and Stacks decks will use this. If you're playing Commander and you do that to people, they probably won't like you very much unless you have, set up some kind of boundaries or whatever you want to call it on that. But it was an interesting combination, I would say, nonetheless. Um, that's kind of it for the Uba Mask and stuff. I'm going to go ahead and go into our Commanders of the Night. So I say Commanders because I wanted to do a partner commander. It just makes sense for my channel, I believe. This is Ukkima, Stalking Shadow, and Cazur, the Ruthless Stalker. So let's go ahead and read Ukkima first. This is a 1 colorless blue-black legendary creature, Whale Wolf, which, I mean, who doesn't like whale wolves? And it's a 2/2. And it has a partner with Cazur, Ruthless Stalker, so that's why you can actually have both of these commanders in your command zone because of that partner effect. And it says that it cannot be blocked, and when this leaves the battlefield, it deals X damage to target player, and you gain X life, where X is its power. So, if you look at Ukkima, you're like, okay, so Ukkima comes out, if it gets sacrificed off or it dies somehow, you do 2 damage to a player, and you gain X life. And it's like, okay, whatever, kind of, right? It's not that great. But of course, there's ways to do better with that. But let's go look at the other commander here, which is Cazur. So he is, of course, partner with Ukkima Stalking Shadow, as partner is. And then whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So this is where they kind of play in together pretty well. So Ukkima comes in, he's unblockable if you have Cazur out, which, since Ukkima's 3 and Cazur is 4, hopefully you put out Ukkima first, and then you put out Cazur, and then on that turn you put out Cazur, which I don't know if I'm saying that right. Cazur? I'm saying, like I'm going Cazur because maybe from Chinese, because C is a TS sound. Cazur. I'll go Cazur now, because I don't know anymore. But regardless, so Cazur, Ukkima attacks, he does damage. Now Cazur puts a +1/+1 counter on him, or her, whatever. And now Ukkima is a 3/3, and it's like, okay, well now he's a 3/3. That's pretty good. And then you can kind of keep buffing that way, and you can, since it's kind of a +1/+1 counter theme with these two, sort of, you can really go that route where you get +1/+1 counters on them, and etc. So I guess to kind of demonstrate a card that would do well in this +1/+1 counter deck, or at least one that I really like actually. This one is called Necropolis Regent. So this is a 3 colorless black creature vampire, and it's a 6/5. So first thing to note is 3 and black. The black is pretty hard to get out, especially in a tricolor deck. But with Sultai, it hopefully won't be that bad. But let's read the abilities here. It has flying, which is nice. And then whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. So this is where I believe Ukkima can get pretty spooky. I mean, honestly, I think Necropolis Regrant, whatever. That effect is good in general. It's a I don't know about a win more. Is a win condition, I believe. Sort of win more, but I think a win condition is probably a better term, just because if you have a bunch of 2/1s, it's like, okay, sure. Then when you have a bunch of 4/3s, then it's like, oh, well, that's spooky. Well, if you attack with them once, I should say. But with Ukkima, if you have Cazur and Ukkima out, and you have Necropolis out, then basically Ukkima attacks. I believe, I guess it doesn't really matter actually. Yeah, doesn't really matter. So Ukkima attacks, it's a 2/2. Cazur's ability goes off, becomes a 3/3, and then Necropolis ability goes off, and now it's a 5/5. The next time you attack with Ukkima, now it turns into it goes from 5/5, and then with Cazur becomes 6/6, and then with Necropolis it gets another 5, and then now becomes an 11/11. So I think it's pretty spooky. And then once Ukkima leaves the battlefield, then it does 11 damage to somebody, and that's, I don't know, I think it's a pretty good way to do it, in a sense of if you're really just trying to ramp up Ukkima and you just need a effect. And the good thing about Necropolis is that it's an overall effect, so even if you don't want to go fully Voltron with this, which that's one way to go with it, but Voltron is a thing where you'll be targeted pretty fast. But Necropolis gives it to every one of your creatures, so that way, you don't have to rely completely on Ukkima, and doing any damage with any creature to an opponent is pretty good, especially Necropolis herself, because she's what, a 6/5, and then she becomes a 12/11, and it keeps doubling from there basically. So pretty good. The other card I want to highlight in this is just for fun. So this one is called Dreamstalker. So Dreamstalker is a 1 colorless blue. It a creature illusion, and it's 1/5. When it enters the battlefield, return a permanent you control to its owner's hand. So this is generally a downside, only because if it had flash, this would actually be a pretty decent card. I assume the reason they say return a permanent you control to its owner's hand is because it's a 1/5, and a 1/5 is for 2 mana is okay, I guess, just to have a good blocker, or a decent blocker early. But the good thing about Dreamstalker is, first off, it has Stalker in the name, so now you can have Stalker Tribal. there isn't enough Stalkers to really do that. Well, there is, but I wouldn't recommend it because they don't really go well together, except for Stalker in the name. But Green Stalker actually has some potential with Ukkima because when Ukkima says when Ukkima leaves the battlefield, it deals that damage and you gain that life where X is its power. So actually, with Dreamstalker, you can bounce your Ukkima back if she's like, a 10-10 or something at that point. You can bounce her back and then deal 10 damage to somebody. I'm not saying that's the most optimal way to get that damage off. You'd probably rather want her to die or something like that. But it is a way for you to pay 2 mana, put out a 1/5, I guess, but then also get off your creature's damage. And also, you don't have to pay commander tax. You put it back to your hand. So instead of having to sacrifice it away or block with it and kill it off, you can always do it in a quicker manner and a way for you to not have to pay commander tax. So I'm not saying it's the best card to put in the deck, but if you really want to put another Stalker in there you go. We're gonna make this a little bit shorter video, so we are gonna go ahead and go into our random cards of the night, as always. So our first random card is this Selesnya Guildgate? I don't believe in that card anymore. All right, let's go to our actual first card of the night. Hopefully, maybe. Oh no, Badlands. Well, I guess we can talk about this one. So okay, Badlands. It is a land as well, so kind of boring, I guess. But it is a very expensive land if you not know what this land is. Badlands is like $150 to $200, and that's because it was printed in the good old days and it's on the reserved list, so they will not reprint it ever again, allegedly. I mean, they haven't reprinted it for 20 many years. Yeah, many years. They haven't reprinted it for many years. I don't know the exact time, but basically, this is probably one of the best lands out there, just because it's. I guess we can read it here. Badlands is a land, swamp, mountain, and you can tap it for red or black. And basically, it's a shock land without the shock effect. You don't have to worry about it ever coming into play tap. That's why it's so powerful, is because it has the archetypes of swamp and mountain. I don't know about archetypes, but the land types, there we go, of swamp and mountain. So that way you can pull it through effects like the fetch lands, I guess. Because fetch lands say, put target mountain or put target swamp from, or not target, put a swamp or a mountain from your library into the battlefield. So with a fetch land, you can actually take Badlands and put it into your battlefield via that fetch land and not have to worry about the shock damage from like a shock land. I mean, it's basically a shock land without shock, like I've said before. I guess if you are not aware what a shock land is, then shock land is basically like this card, but it has a stipulation of if you put it comes into play tapped unless you pay 2 life, basically. That's what a shock land is. I mean, it's interesting why these cards are so much, and I think if they were reprinted often, these cards would probably not be as much, but since they are not reprinted, then there you go. What can you do? Magic cards, expensive for some reason, but that's the good old cardboard for you. So let's get away from this card. Let's keep going. Let's try to get another random card here. Okay, sure. This one is Angel Song. This is a 1 colorless white instant. Prevent all combat damage that be dealt this turn and has cycling 2. Okay, so sure, I'll stick with this one. Angel Song. It I don't know how many of these kind of exist, because I know there's like a lot of fog effects, and so fog is a green card that prevents all combat damage, and in green there's a lot of cards that are like this. So I don't know if for white this is an uncommon card to have. I feel like it's probably not that uncommon, but I can't really think of any else that are like this in white. Off the top of my head anyways. I'm sure there is. But the other good thing about this card is that it has cycling, and with our new Jeskai commander Gavi, Angel Song does pretty well, because that cycling effect allows you to, it gives you a pretty good instant effect if you are about to be killed. someone tries to combat damage you for 40 damage or something, then Angel Song it. There you go. Now, if you're a huge advantage and you don't really need Angel Song, cycle away for 0 with Gabby, and there you go. And then you can make a token out of it, probably. So, it's okay, sure. I'll accept it since it actually worked with Gabby. Sure, fine. But anyways, hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.